Welcome to 3 by Web3 with Stuart Chan and myself, Paul Phillips.
3 by Web3 is about giving marketers today information about 3 ways to play in the Web3 world. We'll cover a different topic each week, discussing 3 examples of each. We range from brand experiences and everything that kind of connects to these brand experiences. So today's topic, Paul, is
sneakers. We're excited about
sneakers.
And just before we get into sneakers, let's talk about what we mean by Web3, right? So Web3, we take a super broad definition by Web3, and we mean more of the cultural movement. And when we think about the cultural movement behind Web3, we think about participation, transparency, and ownership. So what we're not talking about here is crypto or gaming specifically, but more how we can make the internet better again and cooler again, and something we can really be proud of.
Yeah, that's right, Paul. It's, I guess, more accessible for all in a big way. But I think before we dive into today's segment, we need to give a big thank you to our sponsors.
Big thank you to UNSENSIBLE Studios, where we are today. UNSENSIBLE helps build brands in the health and well-being space. They've just launched a content factory, so check them out.
And a great big thank you to Carbon Brews, a Hong Kong craft brewery that is responsible for the beverages that we have today. This brewery is breaking boundaries and bringing excitement to local beer drinkers here in Hong Kong, and they've got their first flagship store on Wyndham Street, so go check them out. Cheers.
And so, Stuart, I want to ask you a burning question. What sneakers are you wearing today?
I can show you, actually. I got my ice cream on today, Paul.
I'm disappointed. I'm really disappointed.
Well, you're disappointed. These are my Stan Smith.
Well, I'm wearing my Nikes today, so I think we're going to start with Nike. We can go back to Adidas in a sec.
All right, you win this one.
Okay. So when we look at Nike, I think everyone thinks and feels something when they think about Nike, right? They think about running over the Golden Gate Bridge. They think about the 2012 Olympics. They think about cape and neck on one knee. They think about lots of great work, and there's lots of emotions behind that brand. And I think to a CFO, they look at it and go, wow, it's a brand with a good margin and some healthy numbers. And that's because they become so much more than a company which provides coverings for your feet so that your feet don't get sore when you walk, right?
Right. Well, they cover a lot more. I think about the spirit of Nike, actually. This whole spirit of being first. Winning. I think I used this a week ago or 2 weeks ago in the cast, which is if you're not first, you're last. To me, that kind of embodies Nike as well.
Yeah, and I think that is their Web3. Their insight for their Web3 program is, this brand is really focused around making them more relevant than just a shoe company, right? And as a result, they need to move with culture and keep that relevance. So the big challenge if you're in-house in marketing at Nike, I think, is maintaining that relevance, right? And that means you can't lose in a space like Web3. You need to be first, and you need to own it. You need to win there, right?
Yeah, well, maintaining relevance is always a tough job, even before Web3 came along, because you kind of had to just keep up with the pace, right?
Yeah.
And of course, with the Web3 pace, that's like breakneck speed these days, right?
Yeah, and I think, why marketers love Nike is because so often we overstate the relevance of our own products and brands and services, right? And Nike is one of the few that's kind of redefined itself and redefined sneakers, right? Or what sneakers are to us, right? So should we dive in and have a look at what they've been doing recently?
Yeah, why don't we check it out?
Cool. So I think, if you think about brands and Web3, everyone thinks about Nike and they think about Artifact Labs. And a few years ago, they acquired Artifact Labs, actually partly from a company I used to work for. And Artifact Labs is a Paris-based NFT studio doing very cool stuff with visual artists. And they were doing some very hot collaboration on NFT drops well before Nike acquired them, right? And Nike partnered with them and allowed them to kind of introduce their brand into key drops. They did their first big drop, which was Crypto Kicks. I think that earned them $185 million from that drop, which is essentially a pair of virtual sneakers.
Right. I think, I remember the Crypto Kicks drop, I believe. I think at the time as well, wasn't that pre-acquisition? I thought that was just an experiment as well in the beginning, and then there was an acquisition after that.
Yeah,
the Nike brand became prevalent with the Artifact, the lab itself, right?
Well, I think that's the way Nike's played a really interesting way here because they've actually that through partnership they get exposure to the Web3 community. They're seen as very cool, but they don't have a lot of exposure of that brand. You know, you think about the in-house marketer, and the key thing they're always going to tell the agency is, can you make the logo bigger, right? You know, like, and when they see the end of the spot, and the Nike logo isn't that big in the artifact work, right? It's below the fold, right? And I think this is why we saw, you know, back in June, actually, we saw the website drop of, I think it's swoosh.nike. Which is a
Right.
new platform that they just talked about very recently. And they've just released a bunch of Medium articles plus a wait list for people to sign up. And swoosh.com is really their first foray from partnerships into actually creating their own platform where they can get people to create and actually start buying digital goods and receiving physical goods all through this Web3 platform, right?
Right, right. So this, I mean, this is just the latest, right?
Yeah.
I feel like Nike's had this sort of larger ecosystem strategy from the get-go, right? I mean, they didn't just sort of dabble. They were like, we're just going to go ahead and acquire this company.
Yeah.
And I think it was actually a genius move for various different reasons, right? Number one is you put yourself on the map with all the like an entire segment of customers that probably know about you, but didn't have access to your gear in the way that they'd like to, right? With this whole digital sneaker drop. And then the second thing is they actually were able to integrate that into their business line, right? Which is, or some of their business objectives. Imagine now being able to create a huge sampling of sneakers and then getting sentiment behind the designs without even having to manufacture a sample, right? So there's a couple of different things that tie both into their brand strategy and their business strategy. And
I'd love to see that next year.
yeah, I like imagine just having the NFT drop and then using using the number of items sold or the size of the acquired collection as a litmus test for what to actually manufacture and bring to market in terms of a physical good. And I think that would be brilliant.
Yeah, I agree, and I think what next year in January we're going to start to see more access, and there is rumor on the internet that we'll see what $50 US drops to buy digital sneakers, which is a lot cheaper than crypto kicks,
Yeah.
right? You know, we'll also I think you know that partnership model has been super interesting, but yeah, as you said, at a point that's the test and learn, right? And now we're going to see them integrate that more across their business lines, right? To some of the things you talked about. I do wonder whether we'll, you know, how will, you know, we look at the money that Nike's raised in Web3 so far, and they've got $184 million acquisitions, right? These all sound like really big numbers, but when you look at Nike's actual sales, it's tiny, right? And so is there still a space where they're showing up as cool? How is this going to perforate through the rest of their work, right?
Web3 is still a very, very small subset of what marketers and brands are doing in this space today, right? But you know, while it is a small percentage, that's not to understate the cost of investment,
Yeah.
right? I mean, those, like you said, those numbers are not small.
Yeah, and I think that's really said. You know, the insight here is that Nike needs to win in the space no matter what, right? You know, should we move on and talk about another brand that also, I'd say, I'm not sure if they have the same insight as Nike. They're a different brand, right? Do you want to tell us a bit more about Adidas?
Yeah, yeah. So my beloved Adidas, I've been an Adidas fan for quite a while. So you know, digging into this earlier, I was trying to figure out what was the connection between the old school Adidas and I guess the new school Web3 Adidas. And so I think that this whole sentiment of it's coming from the originals sort of arm from Adidas, right? So they're trying to reposition originals from being like, I guess, my brand to being some younger kid's brand.
Yeah.
And in doing so, to bring this to bring this new era of originality about, they kind of have to move at the speed of culture, right? That's the way they feel like they have to. And they're not taking the same approach as Nike, but they are taking an approach that's sort of true to the Adidas heart, right? So if you kind of look at the things that they've done in the past, right? They're kind of embracing this. They still act with rebelliousness. And Andrea Nieto, one of the senior designer futures at Adidas, did say this in her quote. She said, "We always seek to be community first, born from culture, and to do what originals do." that is what led us to G Money, Pixel Vault, and Bored Apes Yacht Club. You can't say that you're doing stuff with the community if you just partner up with one person. So it had to be more than one, which makes this a lot more beautiful, but also a lot more complex, right? So I think that's sort of the spirit of where they're taking it. Adidas has always been this true collaborator of sorts. If you look at everything that they've done, like my first memory of Adidas is Adidas and like Run DMC, right? And then there's also got Yamamoto, they've got ASAP Rocky.
Well, I love this.
We don't really.
Exactly.
Right?
I love this because, you know, we look at the swoosh web from Nike, and you're waitlisted, and they're going to look at a bunch of different factors, including which is great because we need more balance in Web3. We need more diversity. That's where creativity and creation can come from, right? Diverse perspectives. And I think, but what they're doing here is it's still quite guarded and gated. Right. And you know, there's been this discussion in Web3 where you know, a lot of hype around Web3 projects start where you kind of, you know, it's only really influencers in the niche group of people that really ever know what's going on. Right. And actually the principles of Web3 and the why people are disenfranchised with the internet is because they want a more open and transparent internet. So I actually like the thing I like about the Adidas approach here is it's partnership driven, and that's really in the spirit of the culture behind Web3, which is, you know, people want transparency, they want to participate, right? You know, they're gone are the days of this kind of closed door environment where brands used to be able to tell people what to think, right? And that's very much a promise of Web 2, but we never quite got there, right? And I think we're seeing the second coming in Web 3, right?
Yeah. I couldn't agree more. I think the spirit of Web 3 is totally this whole collaborative part, right? I mean, if you look at the collaborations that Adidas has done since December 2021, they launched their own concept into the metaverse, right? $23.4 million in one afternoon after a collaboration with Basie, right?
Yeah, wow.
And then
and Basie, for everyone, is one of the hottest NFT projects, Bored Ape Yacht Club.
Sorry, I should try to remember
for
our audience, right?
non-native people.
That's right. But then they followed that up in January 2022 with a partnership, a collaboration with Prada, right?
Yeah.
So it's not just Web3 companies that they're partnering with, but rather companies that are that they feel like share the same ethos, but are also willing to experiment, willing to dabble, right? And then just last week, they said phase 3, right? Which is they're essentially dropping the capsule collection, and you can open up these mystery boxes and get access to whatever's inside.
Yeah, that's fascinating. This partnership model, especially for Web3, you know, I can see a lot of steam coming in a few years' time, particularly with this kind of cookieless future. You know, the rise of Web3 platforms. You know, we're seeing a lot of partnerships in traditional media. We're seeing a lot of brands, you know, moving away from their traditional media plans, treating those as hygiene and looking for areas to grow in partnerships and first-party data providers, right? And I think that you know, this is. I could see this getting a lot of steam in a few years' time.
Yeah, I think it's getting steam now, right? They
Maybe, I mean from not just Adidas, but the other brands.
right, yeah.
Right.
But just like from the into the metaverse kind of direction and the ecosystem we're trying to build, they actually are activating the whole Web3 fan gating tool already, right? They're, I think, in Miami, or there's a Miami event going on where there's various different events that are happening, and then only the communities that they've collaborated with, along with their original created collection, those things serve as your NFT ticket to access to some of these events, and it's all live in Miami.
But that's cool, and I like the offline online thing, and I think because when I saw last week's drop, I go, wow, some of this gear is super cool. I wish they actually made that stuff, right?
I think that was where I was going with it too.
Yeah.
The online offline stuff is so good for events, and it's so good to use and leverage blockchain technology essentially to gate it for people. When are they gonna go phygital?
Yeah, exactly. Well, I think even for like, you know, like one of the things that gets passed around the Web3 community, I don't know if you've seen this video, the video of a guy taking a shower in the metaverse.
I have not seen this video. I think can we show the video?
It's funny, but I think even for people who are Web3 native, right? Like, we still want the physical stuff too, right? The utopia with the Web3 utopia is not everything moving online to a digital world, right? It's the enhancement and enhancement of what it is of human experiences, right? Right, and adding another layer to it. It's not taking away anything, right?
Yeah, yeah, it's not. I mean, Ready Player One.
Yeah,
But I actually think about like Demolition Man
I've
back
not
in the
seen
day. I
that.
don't know if you've seen it, but it's also this Wesley Snipes like kicking ass kind of virtual
I see.
technology is taking over the world,
Oh, cool. Yeah.
dystopian future.
Okay.
Um, these this
I'm always Back to the Future man, because that's utopian, right? Like,
right, right.
okay,
Um,
we should move on.
so I think the third brand we were going to talk about, I am wearing the same brand on both shoes or both feet today. So
That's good.
I don't have
You managed to get put the same pair of shoes on.
I
That's
don't have
good.
a shoe to show for
Well,
this
that's
one.
true. Yeah. Well, so no one in the studio here, unfortunately, has a pair of Lacoste, but I do want to talk about Lacoste because Stu and I, right before we started recording, we were like, this isn't really a shoe company, and we're like, yeah, it's not really a shoe company, but we wanted to talk about them today. We've both done a bit of reading on them and a bit of thinking about this brand. They are big in sneakers, right? But Lacoste is also really well known for the polo, right? I think of this brand, and I love this brand because, I think I first fell in love with this brand in 2010, so 2010s when they first came out with those beautiful TVCs. In 2014 when they had that BETC, the French agency, put out some beautiful spots. They did Timeless after that. There's some groundbreaking years, so work a few years ago with kind of walls demolitioning. It was kind of Edith Piaf love story, and I think, for me, Lacoste, people think 1933, they think Rene Lacoste, they think tennis players,
Yep.
they think polo shirt, but they also think especially people marketers like us, I think we go, well, they took 80 years to do their first TVC, right? Well, it wasn't until 2014 when they did their first TVC. So when they get into something, they do it right. Right.
This is true. I mean, I do think about that. When I think of Lacoste anyway, I think about shoes that are too narrow for my feet. And
Mine too. Maybe this is why we don't wear them today.
right,
I've got fat feet.
right. Just flat. Like if there was a bigger than double E size for me for Lacoste, maybe it would fit. But
Well,
doesn't fit.
maybe that's the insight here around to take that, not about your feet, but also
Stop talking about my feet. Paul.
but about but refined, right? Because I think
Right, that's where I was going with it.
Yeah.
Elegant, a little bit more elegant, a little more prestigious, upscale, and yes, a little bit more refined, which
Yeah.
probably plays into this whole approach. You mentioned as we were talking about this before, the thing that stuck out was avant-garde, right?
Yeah, their chief brand officer, and usually when you get a new marketing launch, you get a long press release and this waffly quote, but there's one word in it which is really different from everybody else, and it says the word avant-garde. And when we think about avant-garde, we think about art experiments, right? Well, I do anyway, right? And I think that's what Lacoste is doing here. One of the challenges for them is that they're a premium brand, right? So you don't necessarily want your brand. And even you want a bit more control over your brand, a bit more curation, right? So I think their project here that they've launched, which we'll take a look at now, UNDW3, which is pronounced underwater.
Underwear?
Underwater.
Underwater? I'll take your word for it.
Underwater. And I think one of the elements, because they're a premium brand, they use this crocodile motif as an area where they can play more, right? Because the Lacoste, which is part of that, is that they want to keep that. That's 1933. I don't want something that when I think about, the value in that brand is because it's a bit timeless. I think that their new campaign this year talks all about how they're ageless, right? Ageless style, right? You don't want something that's moving so quickly. So I think the project, what they've done here is they've created a platform. They've gone their own way. They've not gone the Nike way of partnerships. Sorry, of acquiring somebody, or the Adidas way of partnerships. Really, they've created their own platform here, and it seems to me like an avant-garde art experiment around the crocodile at this point.
Yeah. The crocodile thing it triggers something within me because I kind of remember, and with this brand, I guess on the non-Web3 side, something that stands out with me is a campaign that they ran for endangered animals. So they ran an endangered animals campaign where they created a limited edition set of polos, and then they changed the animal to the animal that was endangered, and then they only made that number of polos available. Like
That's
there's
cool.
100 tigers in the world, and they put the tiger on it, and there's only 100 units that they created, and
Yeah.
that's like that speaks to like the level of creativity, the level of I guess elegance, and that whole full funnel the thought process, right?
Yeah.
That they have behind their brand and what they can do as a brand.
Yeah.
And then they turned around and they did something like uh, Minecraft collaboration,
Yeah.
which was felt like completely off to me. So it was
Yeah.
pixel art, and then I could get
Well, I
like
think
shirts, sneakers. I mean, I think the execution was fine, but I felt like it just felt awkward.
yeah, and I think the Minecraft thing was in March, and I hope that what we see now with their launch in June around this platform, I think we'll see more premium, I mean, maybe on Cyber, which is a more premium art gallery, virtual art gallery space where people show stuff. I also think your point around where they've played with the crocodile before, right? And many premium brands. Having been in-house myself and all agency side, people go, well, there isn't really a lot of room for us to play with our brand, right? Because, we've got Tiffany's in the last episode, right? It never really changed the blue until recently, right? Having the crocodile and ability to change with that gives a premium brand an ability to play elsewhere, right? Which is really what they're doing here.
I think playing is important to kind of highlight there, right? Because that's kind of what they're doing
Yeah.
now with the whole underwater, the underwater collection, right? They have announced that there will be some sort of self-built, self-contained ecosystem that they're creating, and they're saying the only way to access that is to grab an underwater
Genesis.
PFP Genesis NFT, right?
Yeah.
So I'm hoping that as they evolve their Web3 strategy, we're going to see something that matches Lacoste a little bit better in terms of their brand, the avant-gardeness, right,
Yeah.
their ethos moving forward. I'm kind of excited to see what they're going to do.
Yeah, me too. And I think we might see more curation, right? Rather than purely community driven. I think we'll see curation from that brand. I think we'll see commissioning of great work, really high art digital work, which will be really interesting. I would love to see, being a brand from 1933 with so much heritage and ageless and timeless. This is all the words that are associated with their latest brand marketing, right? Over the last few years. I would love to see them take some of the historical assets and their brand narrative and story and actually put that in a Web3, in an environment on blockchain, make it immutable, right? Where people can really see that history, right? I think there's something they could do there for sure.
Yeah, definitely. I think they would want to do it in a little bit of a different way than stuff like that has been done, though, right? We've seen the SEMP stuff with Artifact, and there's like this historic like art piece that's just this part of heritage now. I think for Lacoste that might be a little boring. I'd love to see them play a little bit more.
Yeah, well, we think about those TVCs, right? We think about a single shot, someone running through a journey of carriages. Have you seen the spot I'm talking about? It's one shot, and it's a couple that are chasing each other through a carriage, and through the carriages change, the people around them change, and their clothes change over the decades of the last century.
Okay, can we play that video? I'll check it out
It's
definitely
beautiful.
after. I think I've probably seen it, but it may have been a while since I've seen that one.
Should we sum up?
Yeah,
So
do that.
we've got
So 3 ways to play.
3 ways to play, 3 different brands.
Why don't you take Nike first?
So Nike, I think Nike really squarely fits in the acquisition piece, right? The way they've played here is they've acquired another NFT player doing very cool stuff, and with a community already, that's doing very reputable stuff, has a strong community, and they've tested and learned in that environment before going in deeper and launching their own thing, which we should see more of in January.
Right, and then we have Adidas, right? Adidas going the partnership route where they have their own community, but they've opted to collaborate with creators and tap into the strength of those communities and create something that's, I'd say, unique, but still branded Adidas, as well as paying tribute to the original creator. And we're going to see them probably amp that up over the next year, next 2. They're going to continue to collaborate, and they're going to enhance this feeling of creation, community, and belongingness, right?
Yeah, and then we've got Lacoste, which is really they've decided to do their own thing. They've realized that they can't Lacoste is such a strong brand that they need to chart their own way with it, right? And we kind of talked about, we've been talking about this kind of, that they're doing a walk, right? They know the learnings from Web2 marketing. They're not doing experiments where they're just throwing stuff against the wall and hoping it'll stick. They're taking a sophisticated approach here, and they're really thinking about the brand, who they're reaching, and how they go after it. So yeah, three different ways to play.
Cool. So whichever way any brand decides to choose, it seems like the general consensus is you have to be ready to dive in, get your hands dirty a little bit, and enjoy the process while playing.
100%. I'm going to put my shoes on now.
Well, thanks everybody. If you like this segment, please smash the like button below and/or follow whatever platform it is that you're following us from, and subscribe. And hopefully we'll see you at the next one.
See you guys again soon.